All right, welcome everyone. Danielle Bailey is trying to join us, but having internet issues and asked us to get started. So I will call this meeting to order and start with a roll call vote. Roll call for board members.
Andrew Franklin.
One.
Can't hear you, Karin.
You're mute.
Ooh, you're crackling.
Can you
Try
hear me
again?
now?
Yes.
Okay, present.
And Carla Pennington Cross is present. We have a quorum. Next up, do we have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and then we're on to agenda item 2A, open enrollment.
So Gus and I can both speak to this tonight, so feel free to join in. Gus, one of the things we talked about just previous to the meeting is that we received some additional feedback from the K4 team just this afternoon. Looking at the numbers, there have been a few years where we have had more K5 students show up than we anticipated. I know that in our first look at it, we were told that there were 4 families that they already knew of that did not apply for were not in K4, but were planning to come for K5. So I'm sure that's part of the numbers that they were talking about when they mentioned families that they knew of that were going to be attending for K4. So essentially what I had looked at was 23 available seats. And that if we were to declare 10 seats, that would leave 13. Just looking at the information they sent, they talked about having 16 students join. Gus and I connected and wondered if the board did want to approve open enrollment seats for K4, if we'd want to look at doing 5, which would leave 18 spaces as a buffer. So that would leave a little bit more of a buffer for any students that are 4 years old that we don't know about that move in. The other piece, outside of the financial piece of declaring seats, is that we do have preference for siblings. So if we were to declare no seats, there'd be the potential that we have current students with K5 siblings that could possibly not then be able to enroll. Karn, yeah, I see her. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or if Carla is supposed to.
Carla, you're muted. I'm going to go with it's okay for me to talk. Can I just clarify? Allison, are you talking about open enrollment for K4 or open enrollment for K5?
For K5, but the K5 team reached out and they were concerned that there may be more 4-year-olds out there that we don't know about. And so they didn't, I had left enough room for like 13 to show up in K5 that we didn't know about. But Gus and I talked about the potential of if we cut from 10 to 5, then that would leave 18 spots open, because that was just a concern raised by the team that we received this afternoon.
Sure. And I was reviewing that. I just wanted to confirm, because I was like, I didn't think we were talking about K4, but you're speaking about the rising students, and we're talking about next year's projection for K5.
Yeah.
So are you changing your recommendation then to admitting 5 open enrollments?
I think that would still help us out financially. It would leave spots in case there are any siblings that would have preference, but then it would hopefully alleviate some of the concerns that the teachers had about that being a little bit tight and worried about if we had a bubble of more kids we didn't know about impacting their class sizes.
Okay, why don't we start with any comment from visitors about open enrollment? Would anyone in our visitors like to speak? I'll give you a moment to raise a hand. Okay, I don't see anything. And now board members, Andy?
Yeah, thanks. I have a couple quick questions. First of all, how much do we anticipate receiving per open enrollment student per year? And I guess over the life of their enrollment over the 9 years?
So for 24-25, it's 89.62.
That's 8,962, which is the, okay.
Yeah.
And how much does it cost? Yeah,
I was just gonna add, I know we talked last time about, you know, how many we have leave and how many we have come in, and a desire to keep that pretty similar, that we don't want to lose more than we have enrolling.
so I guess my question for you though, just to follow up on that is that, I mean, I think that, you know, enrollment out and enrollment in are different numbers. I mean, we still lose more if someone open enrolls somewhere else, don't we? With Friday count or,
we're able to count them on. If it's a resident of this district that leaves an open enrollment, we're able to count them for revenue control purposes. But we also have to pay $9,000 to whatever district that they decide to go to. So it's you know, it's a split there.
so, I mean, that's assuming that we can predict how many people are gonna open and roll out anyways.
Yeah, I mean yeah, in both cases, it's one never knows, and we won't know till open enrollment will open in February and closes what, I think the end of May or something like that. Or end of April, somewhere in there. So yeah, we don't have a decent number till later on this spring.
We could also lose money if any of the, and look, I'm not suggesting that we don't do it. You know, because some of these students are special ed, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is the numbers that we get per pupil don't necessarily reflect the per student count. I think that we talked about that briefly at the last meeting because we don't know, for example, if they come into the school district with IEPs. Or if they're gonna need additional services, which at that age might not be apparent. So, taking them in, we could end up paying, you know, a certain amount, which is just a consideration.
That's a little bit part of the second half of this discussion that Kelly wants to have with the board, because we do have some things in policy that could help us with exactly what you're talking about. And so that was part of the discussion we wanted to have with the board as well today.
My last question is, if we don't accept open enrollment, does that impact our staffing levels?
I don't think it will. If you look at the spreadsheet I shared, you can see what the class sizes are had we not taken open enrollment each of those years. And I don't think that they're low enough that we could I mean, I guess it could happen, but based on the trends, they don't look like they'd be low enough that we would not still need 5 sections of K-5. And I know, Karn, you talked about paraprofessionals, and I think that's definitely part of the conversation, but that's a conversation we can still have, like regardless, because that's based on our policy too, with numbers.
Danielle, welcome to the meeting.
Hi,
Would you like to take over, or would you like me to continue on this agenda item?
No, I'm catching up, so you can continue.
Okay.
I assume there was a presentation, you're discussing the recommendation. Has there been a motion?
There has not been a motion, but the recommendation has been modified to 5 open enrollment students for K-5.
And
That's the
apologies. Could you catch me up as to why it changed from 10 to 5?
With the 10 recommendation for 10, that would have left about 13 seats for students we don't know about that may show up for K-5. So based on feedback that we received this afternoon from the team, the thinking was if we reduce that to 5, that would leave 18 seats, which would hopefully alleviate some of the concerns about if we have a bunch of kids that we don't know about enrolling in K-5, keeping the class sizes manageable for the teachers.
When you say the team, is that the K-5 team or the admin team or who?
The K-5 team. There was an email that came in this afternoon.
Right.
So just trying to take that feedback into account while still allowing for some seats, especially if we have siblings that are currently attending that might have siblings because we have sibling preference. And also obviously the $8,900 per student.
Okay.
So
Karn
I'm
or
curious.
Ben?
Yeah, I'm curious what Gus thinks about changing from 10 to 5. Like, is there any noticeable, could there be a noticeable impact, or is it kind of it's not a significant impact?
I can work with that. I mean, yeah, obviously would another 40-some thousand be helpful in budget preparation? Yes, it would, but I also don't want to sacrifice class size and suddenly have large classes just because we want to generate some money. This obviously, we get approximately $45,000. This certainly goes to help offset one of those teachers' salaries. And it certainly helps in the process. I'm, having sat in a number of different administrative roles.
I'm on a call.
I understand what the 5K teachers are talking about, and I think it's a good compromise.
Sorry, Gus, I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing
It
at
was
what I heard
me
from
not hitting
Andy.
mute quick enough. I know it happens. There you have it. Now everyone knows I'm on a call.
Okay,
Um,
so if I'm understanding this right, and yeah, let me know if I'm wrong. So average size with open enrollment next year could be around 17 or 18. It would be 17 potentially with 5, and then 18 with 10.
I'm gonna trust you, Ben, that you just did the math. It was.
Well, I'm looking at this
the
year, so
sheet.
I guess maybe I'm looking at the wrong chart too.
So, we have 82 students that we are pretty solid with projecting, 77 currently in K4. And then, 5 families that indicated they were not coming to K4, but would come to K5. So that's 16.4 average class size. That
So then
leaves
plus
20,
20,
yeah, yep,
So it'd be 18, and what's, oh, the max, it says right there.
yep, 18 to 23 is the range in our policy.
Okay, and then I didn't get a chance to read the email today, and what was the concern in the email today about 17 versus 18?
The concern was that they feel like there have been students or families that they may know of, or students that are gonna show up. This is, I mean, it happened 2 years ago. And so I
Right,
know that
right.
that was one of their concerns, is we had that bubble. And
Yeah,
then we had
so
some pretty
people
large
come in.
class sizes. So that was the general concern, was just leaving a little bit more of a buffer so that
Right.
hopefully it wouldn't happen again.
So that makes sense. So if we did 10, we'd have guaranteed, well, not guaranteed, but almost guaranteed 18 per class. And then potentially if 20 people move into the district, we'd have 4 extra per class.
Yep,
Uh,
yep, that was the concern.
yeah,
for
okay.
this
I
year.
don't know. What does everyone think about that? We go
So
with 5?
I calculated in the
Well,
opposite direction. Do we
I
need
guess-
a motion before we continue this?
Yeah,
Danielle,
well, if we're trying to hone in on the motion, not necessarily.
Yeah,
Am I
'cause I-
frozen?
on and off. I will say, Ben, I calculated in the opposite direction. I tried to put on, the most cruel possible lens, because if we don't allow any open enroll in and we end up with 82 or 87 students, right? 82 students, we could have 4 classes. We could reduce the number of classes by 1. And that's the harsh reality. You could cut a teacher in para position. That's the
But-
cruelest way to look at it. So just bear
Yeah,
with me. So that's, if we assume open and roll out, I don't want anyone to open and roll out. We're working hard here, but if we assume any rise in open and roll out, then with no open enrolls, we could have just 4 K5 classes And I am not sure how that works out, if it's a net gain or a net loss, but I think it's a net gain for the salaries of two positions versus the, what, 80 or 90,000 for 10 open enrolls in. And I know that's awful, but I think we need to think through all the possibilities. So just let me finish. So that's one way to think of this, but it begs the question whether there's going to be surprise K-5 enrollments. It's a crapshoot, right? We don't know until we know. And we don't know until we know if there's going to be a surge of open enrollment out of our district. So from a parent's perspective, you know, if I'm looking at this very superficially, a reduction in open enrollment in might make me less inclined to open enroll out, because I know class sizes are going to stay smaller. So I just want to pose that up to you guys, because I've been trying to figure out what the best answer is. And I think that's an aspect of it that's very soft that we need to be thinking about. The other thing I noticed looking at this data is that there's room in first and third grade, although that might be for last year. First grade has class size of 18.5, third grade has a class size of 18.8. If you're looking for 10 to 15 open enrolls in, there's room in those grades to add a person per class and still be well within our class size limitations. So we tend to only think about K-5 open enrolls, but hypothetically, you could reduce the open enroll into K-5 and add a few positions for first and third grade, unless that's now second and fourth for next year. I can't tell, but I think that is, and fill up some of our ranks that way. So it makes it a little more complicated calculus, but where I see smaller class sizes, it seems to me there's the possibility of adding a few people there. So that's what I've been thinking about in answer to some of the thinking that you were bringing up, Ben.
Allison, could you clarify for us what the numbers are? So for instance, I'm in the declaration of enrollment seat. Yeah. Could you clarify, are you speaking to this year's numbers?
No, Carla's accurate. Those are next year. So I took what we currently have and rolled them over to what grade levels they would be in next year.
Right. So then that means next year's first grade class with current enrollment will have 18.5 students per class. And then
again, that's not counting students that may move in, which is the unknown that, like you mentioned, right?
But do you have an average of students moving in at different grades? Do you have that data?
Since I wasn't making a recommendation for any of the other grade levels, I don't have that at my fingertips, but I believe it was in the first open enrollment meeting in the large spreadsheet where I had every grade level.
Oh. Do you remember what the date of that meeting was? I could probably pull it up.
17th, I believe.
So I'm curious if I did just look over the email from the K-5 team. So what was the feedback given on 5? Was there less hesitation, or was that a compromise that the K-5 team thought was workable?
I literally saw that email like 15 minutes before this meeting, so I didn't talk to the K-5 team. I talked to Gus.
Oh, when I asked who the team was that you were conferring with when you went from 10 to 5, I thought you said it was the K-5 team.
I'm sorry, I thought you said the team I was concerned with. So I was concerned about their feedback.
Okay,
so I didn't have a chance to talk to them.
So you haven't gotten feedback on whether they're concerned about 5 or not?
No, I just looked at what they were sharing, and there was that bubble 2 years ago where we had really large class sizes because we had a bunch of kids we didn't know about. So I understand that that's probably what they were referencing. Obviously this year we were fine, but it can happen. And if they seem to know of more families that they believe are going to be enrolling, was just taking that feedback into account.
Gus or Allison, what are your thoughts on the idea of adding open enrollment seats to first and third grade?
I also, I'm sorry, Gus, you can answer that, but Also with the third grade piece, just remembering that fourth grade goes down to 4 sections. So just keeping that in mind. Gus, sorry, go ahead.
That is obviously, I'll leave that as a decisions of the board because I haven't seen any numbers. I can't really speak to that. That again, I'm sympathetic to class sizes and where they go with that stuff. Is it conceivable you might be able to add one, maybe two at most? Maybe that could happen. I wouldn't go real out there too far. My biggest concern sitting in the business office is the worst thing that can happen is all of a sudden we cut ourselves so tight that all of a sudden in September, you're looking at enrollments and you have a class size guideline policy. And now all of a sudden September, you have to try to add a teacher and or an aide or something like that. That would be devastating to the budget. At this point, from a budget standpoint, you have, and again, I haven't gotten into it far enough, but you have, supposedly everyone has been budgeted for. They've all been accounted for financially. So it's not like we're adding staff. Like I said, I would be concerned about being caught in a situation that we cut ourselves so tight that September all of a sudden means that we got to add a staff member. And like I said, where we think we could conceivably be financially, that could be devastating. I'd rather go in and work out a budget that fits the staff that we have than worrying about adding someone. And I will tell you that, the question about why did it change from 10 to 5, when I saw the email, I looked and said, okay, maybe we can make this a compromise. I'm sympathetic to what the teachers are saying, but I also understand, but I also am sitting in this position that the teachers need to be sympathetic to where we are as a district, and generating some revenue, is just a reality of life. We have to try to generate some, and this is one way that we could generate some. So I'm just looking and saying, okay, this is a compromise. And like I said, it's acknowledging their concerns, but they also have to acknowledge that we have, at least in my role as the outside person coming in, I have concerns about how I'm going to put together a budget.
So by the way, Gus, thank you for being here. It's nice to have your voice and have you just jump in like you've been here for a year. It's fantastic. My inclination right now would be, because I look at first and third grade and I see like 10, I see a ton of room in first and third grade where we could add some seats without being at risk of going over. I could be wrong, but if our policy allows us to go up to 23 students and we're currently under 19 for each of 5 classes, that's a huge amount of slush there. So sitting here from a fairly shallow perspective, of course, because I only know what I'm given, I'd be inclined to add some seats for first and third grade as well. We could bring ourselves up to the 10, be a little more flexible here, with some for K-5, some for first grade, and some for third grade. But that's just my intuition sitting here looking at the numbers.
Do we have a sense of how many applications for third grade, for instance, we typically get that feels a little bit older than most students are looking to transition perhaps into a district?
I know that Kayla's on. I'm not sure if she's able to give
Yeah.
like an idea of how many usually apply. But
Yes.
also just keeping in mind that change from third to fourth, again, you go from 5 sections to 4 in fourth grade. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. Thanks, Kayla.
Yeah, I can tell you last year I had 300 applications, so we get them all the way across the board from K4 all the way through 8th grade. They are usually greater in the lower grades. But I would say I probably average a minimum of 20 a grade.
Wow. I like this idea, Carla. I'm hesitant to vote on it without having them like go and do a little bit, like just a deeper dive into what that impact is. The way it was done for K5 is my only concern. And the other thing I wanted to add is that you touched on my other concern with the K5, which was attrition. And considering the state of for a lot of reasons, I think that there are people who might consider open enrolling out, and I don't want them to do that either. But I think that 5 might be that compromise with the balance. It's like to make up for some of that. So that compromise, I think, works for me. If there are any K5 team members on the call, I'd obviously love to hear from them. But yeah, but for the first and third, I'm not. I mean, if Allison can't make a strong recommendation or Gus can't make a strong recommendation, then I am hesitant to do anything there. Ben?
Yeah, I know this was said before, but I forgot. So it says 18.8 for 3rd grade, but does that change to 23.5 next year? Or is this 3rd grade? Because I don't see 8th grade. So I'm assuming this is 7th going into 8th, 6th going into 7th. So 3rd going into 4th, wouldn't that be 23.5 per class then?
Yeah, so those are the grade levels the kids will be in next year. So you're right. I moved them forward, which is why 8th grade is not on the sheet. So
But
4th
8th
grade for
graders-
next year is projected at 24.
And the 3rd grade, like you said, Ben, you would divide
18.8.
it
Yep.
into 4 sections. So
I mean, I'm
okay.
reading into what Allison's saying is that she would prefer not to add 3rd grade open enrolls.
Right,
That's
because
what
right
I'm
now,
inferring, because
yeah,
it's
if
not
you
been
look at
said directly.
94 kids in 3rd grade next year right now, if you add 2 more, you're already at the 24 per class in 4th grade when it goes down a section.
Andy, are you thumbs upping to Carla, or are you raising your?
I'm just having tech problems. I wasn't trying to
Okay.
thumbs up. I was hitting the hands up. I just want to make the motion. I would like to make a motion that we approve 5 K5 seats for open enrollment for the upcoming year in kindergarten K5.
Second.
Okay. So there's oh, sorry, Carla, I started taking over. You okay?
Please take over. I'm good.
So there's a motion and a second to approve 5 open enrollment seats for K5. Let's see. And yeah, go ahead.
If we approve this, does that bar us from further consideration of like 1st grade open enrollment?
No,
I mean, we're running up against a deadline
exactly.
here.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. If it would be possible to analyze the other grades, because it sounds like that wasn't done. It was just the K. I'm not sure.
Or maybe even just
So-
1st grade, where I see an obvious,
Yeah.
small class size.
And it's, like I said, it's in the spreadsheet from January 17th, based on the numbers that I ran, meetings with administrative team, looking at staffing. I didn't recommend anything beyond K5, but obviously that information is there in that spreadsheet if you guys wanted to look at 1st grade.
Well, so the recommendation has changed, right? You recommended 10 for partially financial reasons, would be my understanding. And so now if we're recommending 5, if there's still a financial impetus to recommend more seats, would it be worth it to look at it one more time, is what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, because you said you don't have the information, but I believe it should be in that spreadsheet from the 17th, because it had
You don't
every
have-
level.
Allison,
Well,
are
there
you able
is
to
a-
pull that
Right, but at that time-
spreadsheet up and share it?
Yep, I'm looking right now to see if I can.
Thank you.
I
But I think
found
the
it.
point is there wasn't a recommendation on it, right?
Right, it was just data.
And I wonder if would that change? Would that change now, Allison, from you?
My recommendation, not based on my meeting with the admin team and what they're seeing as far as kids coming in and out throughout the year, and they were comfortable with just
Okay.
K5 as a recommendation.
Okay.
And I would just tell you that if, from my perspective, sitting and doing the budget, if I can just get 5, I mean, 1 or 2 more isn't gonna make or break anything.
Okay.
And what I'm
Okay.
hearing is that first grade, we're not talking 5, 7, 8, anything like that. We're just talking maybe 1 or 2. And again, I'm familiar with 5. I feel comfortable with 5K. From my perspective, I've seen the numbers on 5K. I feel comfortable with that. I'm not sure I
Okay.
want to recommend anything in first grade. And like I said, it sounds like we'd
Okay.
only be talking about a couple. That's not going to make or break the budget. Being able to get $45,000 will certainly help me in putting together the budget. That will certainly be one area that we can draw some revenue from. So I don't know that we need that. All I'm saying is, again, being an outsider, not having been involved in these discussions, I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time talking about 1 or 2 extra,
Okay.
from my perspective.
Yeah, appreciate that perspective. I just want to, if there's any visitors who want to speak on this before we vote. 'Cause I don't know, did we allow public? Did you ask for? Oh, you did? Okay. Never mind then. Sorry. Okay, is there any further board discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the 5 seats for K5, voice vote, aye.
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 Any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. Was there a recommendation for sped seats? Or we don't?
Yep, I don't know if Kelly's on, but
Here.
I put the documents back in there. Did you want to go ahead with that one, Kelly?
Yeah, just absolutely. We're using an old tool for determining caseload in that we're not looking at caseload or number of students, but more from a workload perspective and trying to weight the needs of students based on the amount of services they're receiving, if there are behavior supports, things like that. And I also, in the document, you can see factored in kind of a rolling average of newly qualified students that we get. And so since 1819, that rolling average is about 33.56. And that's a whole starting caseload. So just knowing that we get at least a full caseload added through newly qualified students. And then we also get newly enrolled students into the district. So that rolling average is about 38. So it's pretty hefty of the amount of new students who qualify for special education services or students that move in with services in their IEP. I'm looking at 0 spots available for students receiving cross-categorical services, 0 spots available for students receiving speech and language services. Our speech and language pathologists or caseloads are bulging right now. Our occupational therapist caseloads are big, 0 spots there, and physical therapy services as well. Special ed is pretty full right now, so my recommendation would be for 0 seats available for a student with requiring any of those services.
I move to accept 0 special ed students under special ed open enrollment for the upcoming year.
Second.
Any further board discussion?
Danielle, you're dropping out a little bit.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Shoot.
Thank you, Kelly.
I know, I'm sorry. Carla, if I glitch, you can just. Okay,
Thanks, Kelly.
shoot. I'm sorry. I have such terrible internet. I don't know.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay.
Thanks,
Absolutely,
Kelly.
for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, if I'm not glitching, is there a motion to move into closed session?
I move to motion into closed session pursuant to 1985 F with stats, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where pair B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect on the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations, specifically for purposes of discussing the open enrollment policy and the superintendent's contract.
Second,
Okay, so this language changed. I have how does the open discussion of the open enrollment policy fall within this closed session?
So the first half of the language that you shared with me on Friday is the same as the original language that I had in there for open enrollment policy, which is the piece about social or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, because we're talking about students in that piece. And then the other piece was obviously added for the part of the conversation that you recommended on Friday.
I was under the impression that I made the motion that we were talking about specific people relating to the open enrollment policy.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, was there a second?
yes, I made a second.
Okay. I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Andrew Franklin?
Yes.
Carla Pennington Cross?
Yes.
Karen Cronwell?
Yes.
Ben Wynn?
Yes.
And Danielle Bailey votes yes. So we are going to move into closed session.
I'm recording.
All right, just for a second.
Okay. So everybody's back in, Carla?
Yes.
Yes.
Could we just
Okay.
request everybody make sure that they're muted?
Yeah.
We're happy to have you present, but we do need you muted.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, we have reconvened into open session. I do want the minutes to reflect that there was no discussion of open enrollment policy in, or anything related to open enrollment policy in our closed session. And the next item is future meeting dates. So tomorrow, oh, there isn't a budget up. Okay, tomorrow, there's going to be a budget meeting with all of our consultants and Allison and Carla in my place because I won't be able to be there. So that's PMA, Baird, Gus, Todd, Allison, Carla. I believe that's it. So I wonder if we'd like to have a meeting at the end of the week, like Thursday or Friday, so that we can give the board and the community an update on, recap from that meeting. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I'd be good. Doesn't Andy have meetings on Thursday or something?
He might. I don't know. I think is he still here?
He's here. I believe.
I'm here. I'll check.
Oh, hi,
Hold on.
Andy.
Hi, hold
Okay.
on.
I'm free after 4 Thursday and Friday, so.
Okay. Karen, how about you?
Thursday, I'm free from 4 until 6:30.
Okay.
Friday, I'm flexible.
Okay. Let me look at my.
I should say Friday, I'm flexible from 4 o'clock on.
Okay. Oh, I just lost you. Zoom. Okay. And Andy's checking. Carla, what about you?
We're talking about Thursday
Or it sounds like Thursday after 4 or 4:30.
after, let's see. I have to pick Nick up from school at 5, so that kind of splits that zone.
Oh,
So
yeah. 5.
I could be available
Me?
until like 4:45, and then after about 5:15 onward.
And Karen has till 6:30, so maybe
Are we
5:30.
purposely avoiding Wednesday for some reason?
Will they have enough time to? I mean, who do we want at this meeting? Do we have Todd or Dan or?
I won't know, but I think it would
Gus?
just be Carla, as long as we have Carla, and then I can confirm Gus and Todd. Oh, you mean, are they on the call?
Sorry, yeah. Do we need Todd or Gus at this meeting, or?
Well,
mean-
if they can't attend, we could get a written memo or recap from
Okay.
either of them. My goal would be that Carla and I would touch base, and then we would have some kind of update to share out on Thursday with the board and the community.
From
Okay.
the Tuesday meeting, right?
Yeah, and if I mean, if nothing comes of that meeting, we, you know, and there's nothing to say at that time, we can cancel. But I think it's just important to put it on there.
Okay,
in
I'm
case
good with
it's-
Thursday 5:30.
Andy? He's texting. Thursday's okay. All right, so and Allison is going to be out of town, so we will, if we could get another administrator, if we need one, I can connect with the administrative team and Allison to see who would be there in her stead.
So 5:30.
Allison, are you there? Are you here? Is
Yes,
Allison
yes. Sorry, I'm on my other phone. I talked to Jenica and Kelly, so I can circle back with them. They knew there might be a meeting scheduled this week.
here? Okay. All right.
I'm
And
here
you'll be
too.
posting it? Or
Yep,
they'll be
I can get it.
posting it?
I'll get it posted. Do you want to confirm after tomorrow's meeting?
No, I mean, I think we just post it as a budget update and future meeting dates, similar to how we've been doing. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that would be okay to post that for Thursday at 5:30.
Yep, I'll get it posted tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Allison.
Okay. All right. I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, the board is available offline to talk. So I don't know why my videos. You know what's up next?
Motion to adjourn.
Sarah,
Second.
second. All in favor, vote voice
Aye.
vote aye.
Why?
Aye.
All right,
Thank
everybody.
you,
Have a
everyone,
good
for
night.
joining
Thank
us.
you. Okay.
All right, see ya.
Bye.